Hi, this is Lisa Kleitch, and this is a discussion on range as part of the elements of music. I'm sure you've heard this before. Why is the American National Anthem, the Star-Spangled Banner, so hard to sing? Well, it's the range. You just heard the killer ending, but let me refresh your memory of the beginning. It goes, oh, say, very low. I sing all the time, and there's no way I'm going to be signing up to perform our national anthem at a public event, ever. So, range is definitely an element to consider when talking about music. Let's discuss instruments versus vocalists. So, in general, instruments can negotiate a much larger range than most vocalists. It's just an inherent property in most instruments, particularly the more sophisticated the instruments, if they're used in primarily performing music that's written. It's almost a guarantee that you're going to have an instrument with a great range, as opposed to, let's say, a penny whistle doesn't have a huge range, and mostly that's in the folk genre. You don't have a lot of published music for penny whistles. Most of it was passed on as part of an oral tradition. So to exemplify what I'm talking about with range and instruments, we're going to listen to a piece for flute. It's a rather modest piece. It's not very technically difficult. I think I was about 15 when I learned how to play this, and yet the range on this piece is going to be beyond what most vocalists could do. So far, it's modest. That was stretching it a little. Listen for this coming up. Okay, that run would have been beyond what most vocalists can do. It's not to say all, but most. So when we're talking about instruments, size changes the range of an instrument. So here we have, keeping in the flute theme, at the very top, this little black instrument up here is half the size of a normal flute, and it's a piccolo, and it plays an octave higher than the flute. It has the same range size, but it plays much higher notes than the flute could ever play because it's smaller. At the bottom, we have the bass flute, and again, it has the same range size as the regular flute, but it goes an octave lower than the flute could ever negotiate. I mean, it just would be impossible for a flute to play that low. And then there's some sizes in between as well. Frequently, you'll have even instrument families like the string family. And so this is a really good diagram that shows the difference in size between the double bass or stand-up bass compared to a violin, and as well as the violoncello. The bigger they are, the lower the sound. And they frequently have the same range size, but it's just they can either go higher or lower within that span of the range. So when comparing instruments to vocalists, here's some things to keep in mind, is that most instruments, like the flute, have a 2 to 3 octave range. And then you have instruments in the keyboard family, and then also the string family that we just saw that have even larger ranges, You have 88 keys on a keyboard, and so that's 88 notes. That's a lot of range. String families have some special manipulations that they can do, which can produce some very high sounds, but they are limited on the lower end as how low they can go. So when you're talking about most vocalists, the range is an octave. People that are singing all the time, an octave plus a few more intervals above that. Some people even have less than an octave range, and that's just pretty typical. However, there are some people that have more range. Here's a collection of some exceptional vocalists that you might know. We have Bruno Mars, below him Julie Andrews. We have the opera singer Pavarotti, Michael Jackson. Above him is Freddie Mercury from Queen, Mariah Carey, the newbie Ariana Grande, and Celine Dion. All have ranges that rival instruments. But they're the exception, not the rule. Okay, so that concludes our discussion on range.